Welcome back to our art segment. If you ask an outsider about Masahisa Fukase, most will be confused. Compared to Daido Moriyama's rebellion, or Nobuyoshi Araki's eroticism, his fame remained lower, with Ravens being his most discussed work. The millisted frames and a $2 million auction price leave an impression. Yet his cat photos feel strange, though hard to define. In the 1970s, Fukase and Moriyama founded a photography school, teaching privately in a master-apprentice format. This elite independent school was led by top photographers that year, when his work was selected for MoMA's new Japanese photography exhibition. Acclaimed but overshadowed by Araki and Moriyama, Fukase was born in Hokkaido in 1934 to a family of studio photographers. Fukase's grandfather founded the studio in 1908, when China was still under the Atema dynasty. Through generations of careful management, the family business thrived. Customers always queued up from birth. His fate was tied to photography, following Japan's tradition of craftsmanship. His father served as an apprentice for 6 years before taking over. This custom continued with Fukase, who received a medium front camera in high school. As the third generation, he helped at home, carrying family expectations. He moved to Tokyo to study photography at university. He often carried his camera through Tokyo streets. His work appeared in photography magazines, fueling his desire to become a photographer, differing from his family's expectations. His family wanted a skilled technician, not an artist. After graduation, he stayed in Tokyo and made his living as a commercial photographer. Behind his idealism lay another reason. Before graduation, he lived with a woman. His early work, Kill the Pig, is shocking. Ordinary street photography did not satisfy him. Instead, he entered slaughterhouses and photographed death directly. As a young worker far from home, perhaps he felt life's cruelty. Kill the Pig also included his pregnant partner. He photographed nudes and a stillborn infant. The contrast between life and death was already emerging, although the treatment remained blunt and immature. By 1962, the woman he had lived with for over 6 years eloped just before their wedding. Like Daido Moriyama, this devastated Masahisa Fukase. Fortunately, the following year, he met Yoko Wanaiba. His life changed. This fresh marriage provided endless creative energy. Yoko became his muse. 1 year later, they married and adopted a cat. At this peak, Yugi Homoludens became his first photo book in 1971. Unlike Araki's insistence on reality, it relied heavily on fantasy and performance. The 6-part series opens with Yoko wearing a black cloak he designed inside a slaughterhouse. Spreading it like wings, she becomes an angel of death and an embodiment of desire. As in Kill the Pig, sex and death set the tone. Chapter 2 opens with Yoko in a wedding dress. Her straightforward smile suggests a very ordinary feeling, interspersed with fragments of their new life, revealing Yoko's passionate and infectious nature. This work's tone differs sharply from Araki's melancholic journey of the same year, as Japan experienced over a decade of rapid post-war economic growth. Seeing his brother's thriving photo studio and the expanding family, he conceived the idea of taking group portraits, traveling home for festivals each year. He gathered parents, siblings, and others for these early family portraits, which overall convey a joyful atmosphere. Chapter 3 includes not only Fukase and Yoko, but also other nude men and women, depicting chaotic revelry or group activity, fueled by abundant wealth from the economic boom. People sought pleasure. He visited Shinjuku several times, a place of decadence, black market drugs, and frequent group encounters which threatened his marriage. Chapter 4 is a transition, mixing travel photos of a former girlfriend with pregnancy nudes. References to a stillborn child pull the work toward darkness. Chapter 5 features Yoko and her mother as models. Post-processing creates a visual umbilical connection. These pre-marriage photos clearly show everyone's happiness, reflecting Fukase's imaginative concept. Chapter 6 draws on married life. His mother, Yoko, and the fast pace of salaried work. Fukase faced the hurried life of an urban employee. On one side stands the inherited Fukase photo studio. Returning home always brought profound alienation. The two gradually became outsiders in their hometown, under the daily gaze of the camera. Yoko felt the strain, realizing she could no longer endure this focus and magnification for Fukase. Photography was his only means of expression. They began arguing, then fell into a cold war. Though his love may have faded as a photographer, leaving Yoko meant losing a vital subject. Trapped in this contradiction, after his second departure in 1973, he resolved to spend a year photographing Yoko, agreeing to a one-year term. He immersed himself in a complex relationship between reality and fiction. Starting in summer, they traveled Japan and visited Yoko's hometown, until the joy of shooting faded. I always drag those I love into photography under the guise of taking pictures. As a result, no one, including myself, finds happiness. Is photography enjoyable? His unhappiness seems clear. For 2 weeks, he used a telephoto lens from a fourth-floor window to photograph Yoko leaving for work, calling to her each morning. He captured the moment she looked back. Perhaps his heart had already broken, and this series of images became a long, mutual farewell. In 1974, Shomai Tomatsu and Nobuyoshi Araki helped found Workshop. Fukase joined as an instructor. That same year, he participated in the new Japanese photography exhibition at MoMA, hailed as the world's first showcase of Japan's new photography, making Fukase famous. He brought Yoko to New York. At the opening reception, she performed her signature song. They spent a few happy days in Hawaii and Honolulu, appearing vibrant on the surface. Despite the agreement, Yoko remained clear-eyed, realizing the relationship was rooted in Fukase's selfishness. The year ended, and their 13-year marriage reached its end. As a photographer, he lost his muse. As a man, he lost his beloved. He spiraled into alcoholism and severe depression. 2 years later, he published Yoko, marking the year of each photo. In 1976, he wrote on that date, "Divorced Yoko wa Niba, moved to Harajuku." Cracks on the glass pointed to an irreparable bond. He could no longer photograph a woman with such passion, inevitably turning toward self-destruction. In 1976, he left Tokyo for his hometown in Hokkaido. He projected his loneliness onto birds he met along the way. In his work, crows carry a dark, killer aura. After the divorce, he depended heavily on alcohol. To ease the pain, he left Tokyo on night train for Hokkaido. On arrival, he saw ravens. Rows of crows stood on eaves and poles, like dark ghosts flying in the air. Their wings shone. Perched in trees, their eyes glowed. In those black silhouettes, he saw himself near the edge of madness, and became one of the flock. Finally, he returned to the building where he had lived for 10 years. Like a criminal returning to the crime scene, yet the past had vanished. Tragedy tears open the most painful places. Fukase poured his inner pain into these photos. The last image, he photographed a scavenger from behind, like an aging crow, and an image of his own future. In his confusion, perhaps he saw the ghost of his ex-wife. His book Ravens made him famous, yet that glory never illuminated his life. If Ravens was his dark projection. Then the Cat series revealed another side of his soul. In 1977, a friend gave him a kitten he named Sasuke, hoping it would thrive. Then, just 10 days later, the cat vanished. He posted notices, and with it some inner light faded. I lost the cat. I think I lost myself. Later, he adopted 2 more kittens and spent a summer in the countryside. After the cat trilogy, he said he'd rather be a cat than a bird. A rare moment of relief. It came the same year he published the series. His close friend and father figure, Shoji Yamagishi, died by suicide. The light Fukase had found was extinguished again. Devastated, he returned home to rest. As a final refuge, at least peace was possible there, as mentioned with Yoko during their early marriage. Earlier, they took joyful family photos. His early work seemed absurd, like a play, assigning roles to each member, even cosplaying a thief. Family photo sessions became festive fun, inviting viewers to share the joke at his expense as the third Ghanesian failed photo studio owner in 1985. After a decade-long gap, his father appeared again, now much older. Also shown was a photo of his sister, who died at 5. A sense of death hangs over the entire series. Japan's bubble economy from 1986 to 1991 eventually burst in the early 1990s, triggering a severe economic downturn. This ushered in the Heisei recession, and his family business declined. In 1985, when everyone faced away from the camera, it seemed to foreshadow his father as the next to die. The final image of the Fukase family was taken by assistant Masato Seto. Family members scattered like sand in wind, returning to their separate lives, watched by Masahisa Fukase. Alone, he turned off the studio lights. His father died in 1987. 2 years later, his brother divorced, his mother entered care, and the 1971 album had shifted from comedy to an unforeseen ending. The family scattered, the studio closed, and everything moved toward decay. His father had died of pneumonia. On the snowy night before the funeral, Fukase gathered the family for another portrait. In his father's place, he put a photograph he had made in 1974. The elderly man wears a reserved smile. After his father's death, Fukase examined his family's rise and fall by revisiting his father's memories. Memories of father gathered 16 years of photographs through his father's cremation. The family portrait became a revelation. A family portrait gathers all relatives to be photographed simply because one day they will die. The camera, in fact, is a device that seals death. The prologue begins with his parents' wedding anniversary photo. In this album, the narrative tone becomes more serious. After 1975, his father's condition worsened, following a fall on the street. The final image is a close-up of a body covered in white cloth, calmly describing the funeral scene. The photo book ends with negatives of his parents, adding a panoramic puzzle of family and community. What once seemed like a vast world in childhood is now just a small village. From another angle, his father's life mirrors Fukase's own. Seeing his aging father, he glimpsed his future. The hometown, meant to be his soul's resting place now, disappears with the family's passing. He completely unravels. As Japan's real estate market crashed in 1994, the economic bubble finally burst. Entering a 30-year economic winter, near the end of his career, he devised various methods for so-called creation, trying to blend daily life with performance. He used photography to capture himself and others in public spaces. In 1989, he began the Private Scenes series, embedding his face into photos of metaphorical places. Shot beside graves and corpses, faces squeezed in the corners gradually distort. At this moment, he may have lost himself, using self-portraits to remind himself. Cracks, photographs, fractured pavement, and ends with fingerprints pressed onto the images. The broken surfaces point to Fukase's growing concern with aging. Even the hardest ground fails, inevitably collapses. These graffiti, Fukase stated, are a kind of makeup. The fingerprints used again reflect himself. He photographed people in bars, posing them kissing, hinting at unattainable love. After learning his divorced wife, Yoko, remarried, there was a month. Fukase photographed himself underwater with a waterproof camera, recalling Narcissus, who drowned through self-love. He used humorous titles to evade his work's dark core. It is hard to say he was still alive. This seemed like a final flash before death. Finally, the tension snapped. On the 20th of June, 1992, he fell down a staircase in Shinjuku while drinking. This reenactment of paternal disaster ended his career. It was expected, as early that year, he formally gave his death notice to friend Edo Moriyama. His doubts about photography deepened. Unlike Moriyama's farewell photography, Fukase's fall could look like a planned suicide. He had said he was completely tired of taking pictures. He then moved to a nursing home for rest. In his final years before coma, he printed black and white photos and painted vivid colors on each. He fused these images with self-portraits. The surging emotion within reflects the grief and ecstasy he endured. He treated the camera like a gun, piercing time's limits. He pulled the trigger repeatedly, first at his wife, then his family, finally himself. These works are no longer simple pictures but a city of layered images, a graveyard. We enter his saddest memories. Some pictures look happy, but inspection says otherwise. His soul was twisted beyond recognition, indistinguishable from an animal. Photography, his life's core, constantly consumed him until life met destruction. Art is not easy. Sometimes the cost is life itself. As Wang Liubo said, others' pain is your art's source. Your own suffering only becomes theirs. These videos demanded extensive research. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. I am Liu Ming from Art Lucida. See you next time.